from the Resin Rainbow here. I'm back doing another coaster pour. I like coaster pours. They're great for beginners for resin. They're great for anybody who enjoys doing resin, to be honest. They don't use a lot of resin either. So these ones, for example, the coaster mold is quite shallow. So they're fab if you are just starting out and you're looking for little projects to just get you into the world of resin. Coasters are a great place to start. These ones, I'm going to use my Cricut machine and I'm going to do a vinyl cutout of, I'm thinking like a cocktail glass or a champagne glass or something in silver holographic vinyl, which is why I've got my sort of silver holographic glitter here from Create and Bloom Crafts, which is a really pretty, very, very fine glitter. So my plan is to build these coasters in reverse. So normally when we do resin, we pour into the mold, leave it to cure, and then when you turn it out, the base is your top. But this time, what we see on the top is going to be the top. So to ensure I get a perfect top coat, I'm going to be using Apex's Cure Pro resin. Now this has been an absolute game changer for me, especially. As many of you might know if you've been following me on Instagram or you've been watched any of my other videos, I don't have a specific craft room. I do all my crafting in my lounge at home. So I've got my washing machine going, and to be honest, I live in South Wales as well, which is very, very wet most of the time, and in the winter especially. So the humidity in my house is really high. It's also quite cold at the moment, even though I've had the heating going off and on. So the Cure Pro has been designed between Apex and Lou at Create and Bloom Crafts to cure in low or high room temperatures. It can stand up to humidity. It has never ever failed me. So I know that by using it for these coasters, I'm going to get a perfect result, because you want a perfect base coat to put your vinyl on, and then you want a perfect top coat for that top coat for your resin. Sometimes in humidity or in cold temperatures, your resin can kind of get like what looks like either like a cling film effect on top of it, or almost as if there's water sitting on the top, like a mist, which is known as amine blush or some amine bloom. And that can happen if you're, like I said, if your working space is too humid or too cold. That's a thing of the past if you use this. So if you work a lot with flowers, or you do a lot of top coating or doming or anything like that, this is the resin that you need to be using. I absolutely love this stuff. I've gone through, I don't know how much since they launched it. It's brilliant. So I'm going to be using it for this from the top to the bottom, because obviously, like I said, we're going to do this in reverse. So we're going to start with a black layer at the bottom, only very shallow because the coasters are very shallow. So I'm probably going to fill it maybe a third of the way, perhaps, you know, sort of between a third and a half of the way. I'm not going to be too specific, but basically just not to the top. Leave that to cure. I'm going to do a very, very fine rim. Once that's cured, a very, very fine edge of silver glitter, just to add a little bit of extra bling, because I do love my glitter. And then I'm going to put the vinyl cutout on, and then we'll come in at last with our top coat, just clear top coat then, to finish the coasters off. So that's what I mean by saying I'm building it in reverse, because then once we demold, what we see in the mold is the coaster that we're going to have, as opposed to turning it out and having the coaster on the base. So we just need to mix up only a really small amount of resin to start with, because like I said, I'm only going to be filling these about halfway. So I think I'm probably only going to mix up about 40 to 50 millilitres of resin. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio. Again, nice and easy to work with. So I'm probably going to mix up about 25 millilitres of resin and 25 millilitres of hardener. And I'm going to see how that goes, splitting it between the two moulds, because I just want a nice solid black layer to go on. I don't want it to be completely full. So I'm going to get on and do that, and I'll come back when we're ready to pour. Oh, and just quickly, I forgot to say that I'm going to be using UV resin for the glitter trim. I've done this technique on coasters before, where you can add glitter detail or any detail to a coaster using UV resin. So I'm going to use it again on this one, but just literally just for the glitter rim going around the edge. So I'm going to get on to mixing my Cure Pro, and I'll be back. So I mixed up my resin. 60 millilitres in total, so 30 of resin, 30 of hardener. And I've just added the very smallest amount of Apex Resins jet black pigment paste, only the very end of my lollipop stick. It was more than enough for just this very small amount of resin that we've got in our cup. And I'm now going to pour that across the 2 moulds. I hope that 60 will be enough. If it's not, I can just mix up a little bit more. You just need to have a solid base to your coasters. So I'm going to just start by putting a pool in the middle of each one. I always worry when I do this that I haven't done enough. It often does go further than you think. And you can just go back in and top them up. Just remember, you can scrape your cup out as well. There's loads of resin that's going to be left in this cup that we can scrape out and make sure that we get every last bit. So I think that 60 will be plenty to fill these. So these will only be filled to about halfway, maybe just under, which is roughly what I wanted. I'm going to just scrape out what's left. This one's got less. So I'll put some in here. This one doesn't need much more. Perfect, there we go. And then just have a check, make sure it's gone all the way into the corners. So you can see over here, there's a tiny little bit that just needs a bit of coaxing in. And I like to try and keep everything clean if I can. Sometimes you can't help the odd drop, but when drops of resin cure, especially when you're working like I have to on trays, leaves you with an uneven work surface then, and then that affects any other pours that you have to do. So it's always good to try and clean up after yourself. So I'm going to leave these to sit just for a couple of minutes because I can see the bubbles that are coming to the surface. So I can then give these a quick blast with my long handled lighter. Now, because I've poured such a shallow layer, if this was a thicker layer, I could come back in about 8 hours or so and put the vinyl on, maybe slightly longer. But because this is such a shallow layer, even though it will be touch dry, to be able to get the vinyl to stick and stuff, I'm going to risk denting the resin. So I'm actually going to leave these to cure. I'm going to come back the next day. It seems like a long time for just such a simple pour that we've done, but I don't want to risk damaging my base layer because I need these to look absolutely perfect for that vinyl sticker to sit on. So we're going to come back the following day and we're going to finish these off with our really thin glitter rim and our vinyl coaster and then our top coat. So that's what we're going to do. So I will see you tomorrow. It's the next day now. These are fully cured, nice and rock hard. So they're ready for us to do the glitter trim and to stick our little vinyl inlay on. So this one was quite tricky. It was trickier than I thought to weed and get all the bits out, but it's going to go in the middle of the coaster like this with a sparkly edge. So like I said at the start, I'm going to use UV resin to do the glitter trim. So if I just move these out the way for a second, I'm going to pour a small, you won't need much, so only a really small amount of UV resin into a cup. It looks like nothing, I know, but I don't want a thick glitter edge. I only want a suggestion of a sparkle. And then it's a little bit out of focus, sorry. This is Frostbite glitter from Create and Bloom Crafts. And I'm just going to mix that into my UV. So UV resin is great when you want to add little details, because you can cure it under a lamp and then you can go in with your next layer straight away. So, do you know, I am going to add a tiny bit more because I'm conscious actually I've got 2 coasters to do. So, you know, I just, there you go. It does, this bottle does come with a nozzle as well, it's just I haven't attached it, but it comes with a nozzle for precise applicating. So if you're using it for jewellery, you can use that to make sure that you don't have to do it my way with pouring out of a bottle. I'm only doing it for the purposes of this, but you can obviously attach the nozzle to the top and do it that way as well. So you can do it like that. Right, let's put the lid back on my glitter. Now, I normally have like a little silicone paintbrush. I actually couldn't find it, so I've stolen, this is something from my husband's Warhammer tool set, so I'm hoping he's not going to mind, but I'm sure he won't. And I'm just going to get rid of this lollipop stick because it's going to get my nerves. So move that out the way. Right, and I'm going to work on one coaster at a time. So I'm just going to take a small amount and just dab it around the edge. You don't have to have a tool like this. Obviously, you can just use a regular lollipop stick. And I haven't taken it to the edge yet. I will do afterwards. But for now, I just want to get a rim all the way around. And I'm trying not to come in too far because I have got my vinyl inlay to stick in the middle. You could obviously do this with normal resin as well if you haven't got UV resin. The only difference is you'll have to wait for it to cure, but if you're not in any rush and you are happy to work in layers, then that's absolutely fine. There's no reason why you can't do this with the Cure Pro or with any of the resins. High gloss, one coat. I would suggest if you're using high gloss that you let it thicken up a little bit first so that it doesn't all run into the middle, because obviously this isn't going to have much time to move because I'm going to be putting it straight under the lamp. But if you're using a resin that you're leaving to cure normally, then it's going to have time to move, and especially if it's more of a fluid resin like the high gloss is. The one coat is more of a viscous resin, a higher viscosity, so there's a good chance that that one will stay where you put it. Whoops. It's because I'm talking. I'm not going for a straight edge on this. I'm kind of going for just a nice sparkly rim, really. I just wanted UV resin just because it means I can just get on with the next layer. And it's important with UV resin as well, don't put too much glitter in because you need to be able to get the light to penetrate through the resin. So you need to make sure that it can get right the way through. And if you've got very thick glitter, it's going to struggle to get through to the bottom. So that's why I've done a slightly thinner glitter. Again, if you're using a normal resin, you could go for a thicker glitter if you wanted to. Right, I'm just pushing that to the edges. It's just a nice suggestion of a sparkle. So we're going for a cocktail coaster. Okay, so put that to one side. So I've got a UV lamp, which is here. So I'm just going to put my coaster underneath and, oh God, it's a bit of a mess. And I'm going to cure this for 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm going to jump ahead now, cure this for 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to do exactly the same for my other coaster, and I will come back when they're both done. So 3 minutes on each side. We've got a lovely fully cured glitter rim on each coaster. I've taken my gloves off because I'm not working with resin for the time being. And when you're working with vinyl, it's much easier to work with without the gloves on. Now, I don't profess to be an expert. I've cut these out with my Cricut machine, my Cricut Maker 3. There are so many YouTube tutorials out there for using your Cricuts if you have got one. So I am not an expert by any stretch for using the Cricut. But I have learnt enough to be able to just about, concentrating while I get that centered. I hope that's centered because once it's down, it's down. To just get in, to be able to do this, to get a vinyl inlay. So this was quite a tricky little one to weed, which is where you pull out all the bits that are around the outside. But it was also really tricky to get off the transfer tape because the inside of the cocktail glass did not want to stick. And I also lost a little dot up here. Not that that really matters, you won't notice that, but I'm going to make sure that the other one looks the same. So hopefully now when I peel this off, it should be stuck. So far, so good. Yeah, taking it off is always easier than putting it on. Oh, I've lost another dot. Oh no, I haven't. It's the one that was left. So there we go. So that's our first one. So it looks really pretty, doesn't it? So I'm going to do the other one. So I'll see if I can do this one on here. If not, then I'll have to cut the video and come back. Because what I found with my other one is I couldn't get it all to lift up and I needed to really concentrate and I couldn't talk at the same time. And I don't think you watching a video of me of just in silence would be particularly interesting. So what you do is you basically cut out your design. And like I said, I am no expert with the Cricut machines. Can you see it's still stuck? So I have got a weeding tool, but it's over the other side. So you can use a cocktail stick or just something sharp to get underneath it. But a weeding tool, like a sharp point, is better because you run the risk, like I've just done, of it's all right though, I can smooth it out, of damaging it. You can try and pull it from different angles to see if it'll come up in a different way, but this one is exactly the same as my other one. It probably needed a stronger transfer tape, which I do have as well. So as long as you're careful, you can do it this way. Oh, that dot's lifted. I wonder if I'll be able to get the other dot on afterwards. Oh, that one lifted much easier than my other one did. So that's what happens. You then have it on your clear transfer tape. And then all you do is you just position it where you want on your resin art. Try and make sure you get it centered. Because like I said, once it's stuck, it's stuck. I've just noticed I'm missing a star on this one. I'll have to have a look and see if I've missed it somewhere, but if not, it's not the end of the world. Right, okay, give it a press down. And then when, oh, that wasn't enough. This is just the tool that came with my Cricut machine. There we go, that's better. When you peel it off, it leaves your design behind. Right, there we are. So that's both of them. One of them is missing a star and a dot. But I think they look fine. They're just slightly differently. I'm going to see if I can find it. If I can't, we're just going to crack on with these ones as they are. Well, I couldn't find the other star, so I took the one star off and I did manage to get the other dot off and stick it on, so they at least look the same. There's a tiny little bit of something there, so we'll just get that off. Right, we're on to the last stage now, which is the worst bit with this is when you get bits of dust and you need to make sure you get them off before you pour your top coat. Is pouring the final layer now, and I'm using Cure Pro. So I've mixed up 100 millilitres, so 50 millilitres of resin, 50 millilitres of hardener. Mixed it, I've let it sit for a few minutes just so that some of the bubbles could come up and I could pop them. Not for any particular reason, other than just to make sure that, or to try and stop them from getting trapped in the little sort of areas between the bits of the vinyl. You can coax them up with a cocktail stick afterwards, but I just thought if I let it sit for a bit, it will just do its thing. So even though there are still some, oh gosh, I've got a very steady hand this morning. So I'm just going to pour this over the top. And same on the other one. And the beauty with Cure Pro is it will cover vinyl with one coat. So sometimes you might need to pour a thin layer with some resins to almost seal your vinyl and then do another coat on top. Cure Pro, there's no need for any of that. You can just go straight in, one coat, and you're done. So I'm just going to make sure this is all pushed to the edges. You can see the glitter rim is going to look really pretty because it's sort of going to be trapped in the middle between the black layer and the clear layer, almost like it's suspended, like bubbles. Should have done champagne glasses really, that would have, or Prosecco glasses. Probably need a little bit more on this one, but I'm just pushing it out. You'll notice I've put these back on a tray. It's only so I can move them to their final sitting place. Just top this one up slightly. You can fill them if you want. You can slightly overfill them so that you have a slight dome on your coasters. I like filling mine as close as I can to them having a flush surface so that they're nice and flat. I'm going to have a tiny little bit of this left over. But as with all our resins, you can just use it in another project. So I haven't got much, but that'll be enough to use in something. Now, you can see there's a fair few bubbles. That's because I was a little bit naughty and I didn't warm up my resin. But I'm not worried because as soon as you start to pop your bubbles, the others will then also keep rising to the surface. And I'm just going to come back every few minutes, just keep popping the bubbles until I've got a beautifully crystal clear surface to my resin. And that's it. That's all we need to do. So now we just need to wait for these to cure. Again, I'm going to wait until the following day. And then we will demold. But basically, what you see is the final product. So when you're making a coaster up this way in like a reverse dome, it's really nice. So, excuse me, because you can see the effect that you're achieving as you're going along instead of having to wait to turn them over. So this is what they're going to look like. And I think they're going to look really pretty. But we're going to leave these to finish curing overnight. I'm going to keep coming back on Bubble Watch. This one's doing really well, you can see. I think this one's showing up slightly more because it's under the light. But yeah, we'll come back tomorrow and I will just take them out of the moulds and I will show you the finished coasters. These are fully cured now. Beautifully glossy and shiny and ready to be finally demolded. So out they come. There we go. And that's how they look. So the last thing I'm going to do with them, I'm going to just do the edges in a silver liquid pen or silver metallic pen. So this is just from Create and Bloom. I'm just going to, this is just really, you don't have to do this, but it just adds a little bit. So you can see that line of silver glitter. So all this does, just gives them that extra finish, I think. But like I said, you don't have to do this. This is a step you could skip. Just go all the way along the edge. I'm just going to do this on both coasters. I'll just show you the one side. There you go. So they'll look like that when they're finished. And there we go. There's our finished final coasters. So I hope you enjoyed and I'll see you soon for the next one. Bye.